Welcome back, everybody, to the Daily Racing Show here at RacePlazaMedia. My name is Milan.
My name is Pia.
And today we're going to talk about the Formula One Canada GP recap. Intro, just play the intro.
All right, hi guys, welcome back to the Daily Racing Show. We live streamed the Canada Grand Prix. Thank you so much to everybody for tuning in. We had a blast watching it. I think it definitely made the race more entertaining.
I agree.
Because I was going into it, I was expecting a rainy race just because of all the talks about it. I've been checking the weather report too because I was so curious and I was excited about a rain race because we don't have a lot of those.
We don't, no.
So I was a little bit disappointed. It was wet for sure, and there was definitely something strategy-wise that got into play, but it was not rainy, really.
It wasn't, it kind of stopped raining, like, pretty quickly, like maybe like after lap 5 or so.
Well, I don't think it even rained at the beginning. The track was wet, and then 20 minutes in, it was raining. But even right at the beginning, one of the team radios, they were like, this is as worse as it, or the worst it will be.
Yeah.
So that was already like, ooh, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I had ordered.
Yeah, and then they did have a rain countdown.
Yes.
But then it just never really picked back up, which once again, I kind of, like you said, I wish it would have been because it just gives a more interesting element. I think originally it was very interesting because the only ones who didn't start on the intermediate tires were the Haas.
Yes.
And that really helped, worked in their favor in the beginning.
For the first handful of rounds only,
because,
really.
Magnussen ended up, I think he jumped like 8 positions.
Yeah, and then Hülkenberg also like 9 positions. So they made a big jump. They had a great start, but then as soon as the track or the racing line got drier, that's when they started losing. They had to, of course, go into the pits before everybody else, and that's when they really lost also track position just because of the cost of having an additional pit stop.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a bummer, but it was fun to see them definitely competing at the front and making
especially like Magnussen being in P5.
Yes.
That's huge.
That was really cool to see. But luckily, also knock on wood, there was no major accidents.
Yeah.
There was a lot of
DNFs.
Slipping around at the beginning. Then we did have 5 DNFs in total, which is quite a lot.
Also really devastating for the championship, for the drivers and the construction championship. We had a double DNF for Ferrari.
Yeah.
So Leclerc's car was just not where it needed to be. I think he had, during a pit stop, his car just shut off. So the engine just turned off. Then he turned it back on. He did actually opt to go onto the slicks.
Right before they knew it was going to rain, which made no sense.
It made no sense, and also the track wasn't dry enough at the time for it because everyone kind of knew this would be a 2 pit stop race anyways.
Yes.
You're gonna have to switch off of the intermediates, and then you're probably gonna, because it was a 70 lap race.
Yes.
Even though the track was a little bit smaller, it was 70 laps that you had to go through. So most people did a double pit stop. I think the Mercedes did 3 stops because essentially they had a free stop during the last safety car of the race. But yeah, it was definitely a choice that Leclerc asked for. It wasn't like Ferrari was like, let's put you on the slicks and YOLO it.
Yeah.
He was more like, listen, let's just, go all out. But then he put on the slicks, he put on specifically the hards.
Yeah.
And then a few laps later, they were like, hey, come in, retire the car.
Yeah.
And then...
Well, no, they came in, then he switched the tires back
to the intermediate.
And then a couple laps after that, they were like, all right, let's retire the car.
I think because he already had issues.
Yes.
And then at that point, you're not really doing anything. Let's just
well, you also don't want to risk crashing the car and then the additional cost of repairing it and stuff. And then unfortunately, Carlos did spin out.
Yeah, he lost the car on the curb, I think.
Yeah, and then so he had to DNF as well. Casualty from that was unfortunately Alex Albon. He tried to evade Carlos's car, but it came back onto the racetrack and hit Albon, so he was taken out. Sargent, several laps prior, crashed himself, or he spun out and his back wing got into the wall, so then he had to retire the car as well.
He actually went off track one time before that, but he was able to prevent any type of damage. He just kind of went straight into the wall, but he just kind of like touched it very lightly, and then he was able to get back on, and then Fewley, I don't know how many laps later he ended up just DNFing, which caused one of the first safety car.
Yeah, exactly. And then also there's the same spot where Sainz and Albon DNF'd. Essentially, was the same spot that a couple laps earlier, Perez had also had this, like a similar kind of wipeout, crashed into the back or into the wall, and his back wing was damaged, so he had to retire the car as well. So those were the 5 DNFs, which 3 of them were a little bit more surprising, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ferrari ones were definitely a huge upset, but they were also not competing really for points.
I think only Charles was kind of flirting with like 1 point there.
Yeah, but I mean...
Sainz, the whole time he was like in 13th place.
Yeah, 14, something like that.
The Ferrari was not feeling it this weekend, which is a bummer, especially because you came from the Monaco.
A high, like the highest high almost, at least for Charles.
But winning Monaco, obviously a big deal. And then of course, like Ferrari was the closest in the Drivers' Championship as well as in the Constructors' Championship, and now having a double DNF is of course quite difficult.
It did hurt.
On the other hand, I do want to say it's crazy that this was the 7th race out of 24, so we're 5 races away from just being halfway done.
Isn't that crazy? I couldn't believe it when we talked about it during the race. Like, only 7 races. It feels a lot more, but also because a lot more has happened. I mean, we've had 3 other drivers win races outside of Max, who we had anticipated would win majority of the races this year. I mean, there's still a lot more races to come, obviously. But I mean, it's like so much has happened this season already, which is really, really nice. I did want to give a small shout out to Logan Sargent. Like, yes, of course, he crashed out during the race, but he actually did have a great qualifying because it was the first time he made it into Q2, which was huge for this season. So I was hoping he would do better, but unfortunately it wasn't in the cards for him. We also want to give a big shout out to Danny, because he did indeed make it into the points. He ended up coming in 8th. Yuki, however, he had a little spin a couple laps before the end, so he didn't make it into the points. He was originally a couple, 2 positions ahead of Danny. But I mean, Yuki already has a seat for next season, so he is all set.
Yeah, it's very interesting that both essentially contract renewals had a bad race this.
Yes. With Danny. With Perez and
Yuki. Because if it wasn't for Yuki's mistake, he would have definitely made it into the points.
Yes. For sure.
So that's very unfortunate. It is nice to see that both Alpines made it into the points.
Yes.
So we had Gasly in 9th and Ocon in 10th. You have both Aston Martins in the points with Fernando in 6th and Lance in 7th.
But they both seemed like we were talking about it during the race. Like, there were moments where Alonso was 19 seconds behind 4th place.
Yeah, which was, I think,
or 5th place.
5th place, which was Hamilton at the time.
Yeah, which is a lot. I mean, and he lost that in between the first safety car and the second safety car. So, I mean, yes, there were several laps in between, but it was a 20-second gap is huge, especially for considering Aston Martin started off the season so well. But like we were saying, like, they have the tendency with the upgrades that the upgrades don't seem quite as strong as maybe for some of the other teams. Exactly.
They usually come out strong out of the winter break.
Yeah.
And then
they kind of drop off.
They just kind of taper off, which is a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah.
And I don't know what is causing this issue, because like McLaren does it the reverse way.
Yeah.
They come out of the winter season usually worse.
Yeah.
And then they get better. And this year they've gotten much better. We had Max winning the race again. Actually, Russell had done really, really well in qualifying. He qualified P1.
First pole for Mercedes this season.
He did a really, really great job there. However, he made a lot of mistakes during the race, him and Lando, but Russell made just a few more mistakes. So Russell ended up finishing 3rd, Lando 2nd, and Max ended up taking the win. Lewis ended up coming 4th.
It was so close. He almost got onto the podium.
Yes, he almost got onto the podium, I think, with like 3 laps to go or 4 laps to go. Russell made a big mistake, and so Hamilton was able to pick off Piastri and Russell. But then Russell ended up overtaking Piastri because both the Mercedes drivers, they were able to do in the second safety car, they had a free pit stop. So they were able to do a tire change. And so they had the freshest tires.
Yes.
Which ended up with Russell finished the race on the mediums, and Lewis ended up on the hards, which we've talked about this just now briefly. And I don't know, maybe he didn't have any more left, but I just thought it was so interesting that originally Hamilton was on the mediums, and then they put him into the pits during a free stop, and they put him on the hards. And I'm like, but the medium is the faster tire compound.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, maybe he didn't have any more left. But other than that, I don't understand why he wouldn't be on the mediums again.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because it doesn't make any sense for him to go onto a slower compound. He did end up getting fastest lap of the race, so he got an extra point there. But it's just an interesting choice, in my opinion, that why would you do that?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, who knows? But it's nice to see finally Mercedes is back on the podium.
Yeah, it did come up with some upgrades into this race.
Yes, which seems to be working.
Yeah, they're a lot faster also on the straights, where they've been struggling a lot, where DRS wasn't really making big of a difference. At the end of the race, Russell and Oscar kind of got together there.
Yes.
So it was investigated, but there was no decision made. So because we're recording this right after the race, we don't know whether or not he will be getting a penalty. On one hand, I would be very surprised.
Exactly. We don't really think that he will be getting a penalty. So we will see. There's also still options for Perez potentially getting a penalty because he was under investigation for not endangerment, but because he was driving around with the loose back wing.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll let him get away with it, because essentially by him driving back into the pits, he prevented a safety car.
Yes.
So I don't know if they're like, race interruption or safety. I don't know what's,
I don't know. But I mean, yeah, so overall it wasn't a bad race.
I think it was okay. I think it was kind of like the last MotoGP race. The beginning was a little bit interesting. Yes. Then the middle part was just okay. And then the last couple laps got really interesting
really interesting
because the top 4 had a 5-second difference.
Because I mean, it also did help that we had a small safety car towards the end, or like a shorter safety car stint, where the Sainz and Albon incident had happened. So that bunched up everybody together. But so that I definitely think that aided in making it a little bit more interesting. However, I still am looking forward to Spain. That's coming up next.
Because that's also a track. I think Barcelona, I think they all, I think they made a change to the last corner. I think because usually you go into the chicane and then it is a right-hand turn. And I thought, because technically the track is set up that you don't have to put a chicane there, so it's a little bit of a faster. So I thought there were talks that they were switching that out.
Interesting.
So I guess it will be interesting to see. When is Barcelona?
In 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks? Okay, so we got a week off for Le Mans, which is perfect. In case you guys don't know, next weekend is the big 24-hour Le Mans race. We are doing a live stream for it for 24 hours.
24 hours,
so
folks.
You guys can come in and hang out. Of course, we're not live streaming the race itself, but we will have the live timing up so you guys can see, and of course you guys can chat with us. We will need all the support we can, because being up for 24 hours is a feat that becomes more difficult
with age.
Even though we're young spring chickens, we are going to be majorly hanging out on the couch.
So that's going to make it tricky, like just sitting.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah, we're trying to think of different things to make it also a little bit more interesting. We're of course going to prepare to have some more knowledge about it. We brought out a video reviewing the Road to Le Mans film that came out last year, so definitely check that out. And we'll be bringing out some more
Le Mans content.
Exactly, covering our Road to Le Mans and things you need to know to be ready for Le Mans 2024.
Exactly. And we also made a video about the World Endurance Championship TV app, so you can check that out as well. And then... it's very, very exciting. I'm really stoked. A few more days until Le Mans is here. I'm very, very excited.
Yes, definitely.
And, do you have anything else to say?
Nope. That's all I have to say. Again, thank you everybody for tuning in to this video. Also the ones for a live stream. I hope you'll be joining us for our next one. And then with that, thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Like and subscribe.
Yes.
Leave us in the comments. How did you guys feel about the race? Maybe you guys know anything that we didn't know, especially with the tire situation.
Yes.
And As always, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will be seeing you guys tomorrow here at the Daily Racing Show.
Bye-bye.